out kind of outside the fire area. Is that where?
Yeah, it's definitely outside the fire.
It's one of the areas that we evacuated because it was approaching, so it's off that finger.
It's off this finger probably
The
right
lower
here.
finger, right in that area.
Okay, what these fingers are doing right now is not progressing very rapidly. You'll see this is last night's infrared. This, like I pointed out before, this finger right here ran into lava. We have folks, excuse me, I'm sorry, I keep clicking on that. We have folks in here trying to contain this portion of the fire from moving. It's not moving rapidly. I just flew through there about an hour and a half ago, and this is smoldering. I also sent a picture to some people that really shows it well from the other side, from the coffee pot side, that this is just small smokes kind of all through here today. So this will continue unless or until we get in here and cut, let's say, this timber band off and stop this particular piece. It'll continue to work through the timber. These openings, we don't have, something I should probably explain when you look at the map. We have what's called an infrared interpreter, and that person draws this edge. And this, it doesn't mean that everything that's pink on the screen is black. Because that person is interpreting where the edge of the fire is and including everything in the interior as showing it as burned. But if you have pockets, it could be 50 acres, it could be larger than that have not burned, they will not show up on this in the interior. There's a limitation, an acreage limitation to islands of vegetation that are unburned. And so you'll see that on this fire in particular, when I zoom back out, there are no islands inside this fire that are shown that they're still green. But like Scott said, up the I-70 corridor, there's a lot of areas that are unburned still. They just don't show up on this map. So to get back to your question, on the creek, Coulter area is probably
Coulter Creek, and that subdivision
right
that's in
here.
there.
This series of roads here.
There you go.
So we have a camp right here at Green Lake where the firefighters are sleeping. They feel very comfortable there. All the flying I've done, we have dozer line all along these trails, these Jeep trails and things up on top. So this is all pretty much, if you'll compare the perimeter right here over the last 2 or 3 days, you'll see very little movement in the fire. And that's what I'd like to emphasize, is that because of the fact that we've been up here putting out the spot fires, and this fire doesn't really want to travel through these open areas, it follows the timber stands that are either dead timber from bug kill or spruce fir type, and then it stops. So it basically, I have no doubt that this will likely burn this area in here because it's heavier fuels, but I have an okay to say that the status of that fire moving towards Coulter Creek for the folks, or the Coulter area for those folks that are concerned in this area, is that this right now is not moving.
Okay.
So the next question is kind of related to that in that same general area. Do you know how far the fire is from Colorado Mountain College, which is just to the west of Coulter Creek, correct?
When I've driven up there, so yeah, we're talking right over there, right?
That green spot right
That
there.
should be the college right
That's
there.
it.
So this area, you go past the college, you go up, this is the road closure right here. We have a camp in this field right here, and the fire, as you can see, is over here. So I would estimate probably 8 miles.
How long?
8, just a guess. What do you think it is?
3.5, 4.
Okay, maybe I'm thinking the road that goes over there, but
Several miles?
yeah.
It's miles, yeah.
Okay, 5, let's call it. But it's to me, it's that would be the answer.
It's a ways.
Okay.
Couple more ops questions. Is a canyon rock protecting Glenwood Springs?
Say that again?
Canyon rock helping to protect.
Is that a
Glenwood Springs.
specific geographic area called Canyon Rock, or are they just asking whether the rock
The
The
is
rock
in the
wall, I
canyon.
think that, yeah,
Is it protecting it?
helping to protect it, yeah.
You can see right here that there's a reason this fire has not progressed as rapidly right there, because it has to come downhill against the prevailing winds, and the fuel is much sparser. So yes, in a lot of cases, the rocky, sparse areas are protecting the town from a fire that advances rapidly. It can continue to advance, but not near as rapidly as it would if it was continuous fuel.
Thank you. And then one more, there was some specific questions about different cabins in different areas, but are there structure protection plans basically around the fire for cabins in the area?
Yes, for everything that we feel has a, I don't want to call it an imminent threat, but at the time we feel like there's a threat to something that is, I guess, has potential. Like the previous question, if there's a cabin and it's totally surrounded by rock and it could probably weather a fire blowing right by it, then yeah, our plan would be to look at it and say, you know, that thing's 99% sure or safe, so we won't do anything with it. That doesn't necessarily exist on this fire, but that's how we look at it. The other cabins that may be in the area where we think the fire is advancing, we take actions. Anything can be from flying a person in if it's inaccessible and moving the wood piles away from the cabin, and you know, digging up brush, maybe a little bit of brush around the cabin, and doing a little bit of work to keep creeping fire. A lot of the time what it ends up consuming homes when no one is there, or cabins, is a creeping fire that creeps up the siding and then burns the whole house because no one's there. So we work on vegetation reduction around those dwellings that we think have the potential for fire to get there. Sometimes if it's a safe area, we stay there with it. Other times, if it's not if we don't feel it's safe to keep human beings there, we'll set up sprinkler systems and leave. So there's a variety of things that we've done and that we will do as the fire expands to protect private property.
Thank you. Next few questions are for William, our Air Resource Advisor. Is it safe to go outside if you have asthma? And is it better to walk in the morning, like 7 to 9, or later in the day?
Okay, let me answer the asthma question first. Is you know, that's going to be a self-determination that you're going to have to make. You know, you may consult with your doctor, but you know, I would probably, if you're in the fire area, you know, in these communities, I'd probably just carry my inhaler with you. You know, just take general precautions. As a rule of thumb, I always say, if you could smell smoke, you're breathing smoke. So just because you could see smoke up on the hillside doesn't mean you're necessarily being impacted. It's just a rule of thumb. If you could smell smoke, you could breathe smoke. And if that's the case, probably don't go out. There's going to be mornings that are going to be smokier than others. And there's going to be mornings where one side of the fire is really smoky and the other, if you live in the other side, it's not. So it's really going to be dependent.
I have one more for you. Should we wear masks outside? What are the negative effects if one is exposed to the smoke, and what symptoms should we look for?
Yes, you should definitely wear your mask when you're outside, when you're, you know, you can't social distance and stuff like that. But if you're out, you know, hiking a trail or out, you know, early morning and there's not a lot of people, yeah, you could probably get away with taking your mask off. A lot of the impacts that the majority of us will see, if you're healthy and stuff like that, you'll probably just get some respiratory issues. You may be coughing a little more than normal. You may find it a little hard to breathe, especially if you're going for a long hike or something like that. You know, if you're more sensitive, if you're like in the sensitive group where smoke really causes maybe like asthma attacks, or I know for myself, it really causes me to get a lot of sinus headaches, you know, anytime I'm in smoke. So I limit myself to those times. And the best thing to do is probably just, you know, if you smell smoke, stay out of smoke, maybe skip that day, and maybe not go for a walk.
All right, thank you, William. So, Sheriff or Marty, do we anticipate an actual evacuation order going into place for Dotsero or Gypsum?
I'll answer that one. That's in my lane, I guess. Do we anticipate it? No. Are we planning for it? Yes, but we plan for the worst. We're hoping for the best. We're working very, very closely with Marty and his people, with the Forest Service and everybody. We're constantly communicating. We're monitoring. We have what we call phase lines, which are certain things that operations is constantly keeping us up to date on, that we're checking back on them, watching the progress with the teams that are out there. They're constantly calling in. If it hits certain points that we're looking for, we will have more detailed discussions and we will make a decision at that point. Again, it's been very good today that nothing has really come that direction. I know that the teams, and I think it was addressed, there's a whole bunch of work that's going on between Dotsero and Gypsum and the fire line. And those guys have been out there just killing themselves to get this done, to protect those areas. We've identified the critical issues. So do I expect it? No. It is in pre-evacuation still, and we encourage people to remain that way because it is. We can't say it's not. We can't say for sure that it won't happen.
And then what are the parameters that make the choice of pre-evac versus full evacuation for either of you?
Again, it's conversations between us. It's the sheriff's office and it'll be the law enforcement that actually makes the final call on that. But it's working very, very closely with them. It's going to be the weather conditions, the activity of the fire. If the work that they've done, is it holding the line back, or is it holding the fire back? And today it was. It's been doing very well, so I've been informed. There's a variety of different things that go on. We err on the side of caution, so we've set some of these phase marks where we're talking about to be very conservative, to give people enough time. But again, this is why we say pre-evac. They should have their bags packed. They should have their cars packed. They could actually leave the area. They should have a plan. So on a moment's notice, we put the call out that says evacuate the area. They know exactly where to go, and they leave immediately. They don't dawdle. They don't try to pack the last thing. They don't try to round up the kids. They're not all scattered all over the place. So pre-evac is just warning that it's a possibility because it is heading that general direction. But depending on what the crew's doing and Mother Nature cooperating and everything else, we get it stopped, then we don't have to worry about it.
So we're also getting a couple of questions from the Spanish live feed that we're doing. One of them was, can you have someone speak, well, could I have someone speak on propane lines and how safe they are? So I don't know who wants to take that question.
Propane lines they've got many regulations, safety features that allow for, if it is impacted, if the fire is impacting that particular, that it is either underground, it is protected, or it is able to release the gas so we do not have any large kind of explosion or anything else like that. So there are many different ways that we can protect the residences, the structures, or the facilities.
Thank you. And then for folks who have been evacuated since Tuesday, what is it forecast? Is there any timeline? Should they expect to be evacuated in another week?
I cannot give you a timeline, and the reason being is that those individuals, those areas are in constant evaluation with Jeff, the other operations individuals on the area, and they're giving recommendations to the sheriff and the surrounding community. So as soon as we feel that it is no longer a threat, we will contact the sheriff and then make a determination with that.
Great, thank you. Jennifer, we're showing 7 p.m. Wrap it up.
All right, thank you very much. That concludes our Grizzly Creek community meeting this evening. I want to thank everyone for the presentations, the great questions that have come in that were answered. We will have another community meeting on Tuesday, August 18th at 6 p.m. That will be aired from the Garfield County Commissioners Hall like we did on Friday. Have a wonderful evening, and thank you all for tuning in.